Welcome to another episode of the Roots Podcast. I am your host, Sean Pitcher. Today's guest we have on is Sean Harrington. He was the founder of Notemeal and is currently the vice president and general manager of Teamworks on the human performance side. He was also prior at the New England Patriots, which is my favorite football team, so super jacked about that. And he's also worked with several other tech companies leading up to that point. Obviously, Sean, I know you're a super busy guy, so really appreciate you taking some time out of your morning to pop on the podcast with me.
Of course, man. It gets even busier, Sean, when you have a little kid. I got a 3 month year old, so that's been the real trick. So it's been fun adjusting.
So late night and long hours on both ends then.
That's right. That's right. Burning the candle on both ends, man.
Yeah. So I started this podcast with the same question to everybody. Can you please let us know who is Sean? What is your roots? Like who are you behind Notemeal, Teamworks as a person, as a human?
Man, that's a fun one. Well, I think first and foremost, the space that we're all in, this human performance kind of athletic space, that's always kind of defined me since I was a little kid, right? I've been playing sports since I was, God, like 5 years old, right? I was a baseball, basketball, football guy in high school. I went and I somehow decided that it would be smart to keep playing football and baseball into college and threw in some computer science, which was totally a curveball, right? You think like, I'm the sports dude growing up, and I never touched a computer unless it was like playing Halo on my Xbox and like sophomore year
You're
of high
taking me
school.
back. People are probably like, "What's Xbox nowadays?"
Yeah, throwback. But I stumbled into this computer science thing and found that the software engineering stuff is really, you can do so much with no overhead or equipment, right? You can produce tangible product that people can get value from with just a computer. And I remember that kind of clicking for me in college. I actually got introduced to computer science through a baseball a teammate on my baseball team, and I always knew I was never going to be the best software engineer, and a lot of guys much smarter than me. And believe me, there are many guys that are much more athletic than my stupid D3 tackle missing self, right? But I think the goal was to go work at the intersection of both computer science and football, because maybe that would be a little niche I could carve out for myself, and I've kind of been on that track for some time. But the deeper roots there. I think some of the weird stuff that people don't know about me, I have this weird obsession with food composition. And I'm not talking about like carbohydrates and proteins and fats and magnesium even. I'm talking about like bioactive compounds in foods. Like this is a weird I actually spent a whole gosh darn year writing a publication in the nutrigenomics space, exploring compounds in food and how they elicit similar compounds to drugs. So the idea being that, hey, many folks listening here might be familiar with theanine, right? If you're drinking green tea, you're kind of offsetting some of the jitters induced by the caffeine with some of that theanine, and that's now in supplement form, right? But how do compounds like theanine or curcumin, or the next compound that comes to mind, right? How do those elicit similar responses to drugs? So anyway, that's kind of my weird little niche, and I've been really interested in that for some time. So
Have
I'll
you
follow
have
that
you
space loose.
talked to any sports pharmacologists?
I haven't even heard of that
You
word.
probably,
See, this is the niche
yeah,
thing, right? There you go.
yeah. So I actually had one on the podcast. Her name is escaping me, but she is fantastic. She does a lot of that medication, supplement, biomarker interaction, and there's more stuff coming around the corner with looking at your genes and like how to possibly manage or match certain supplements and certain medications that are going to best fit what your genes are able to actually utilize, which I thought it's like, that's some kind of like next level thinking of
Well,
athletics and sports. If you can get to that point where you can match exactly like this is what works best for your body, and this is going to help enhance and optimize your performance and recover faster than you ever did before.
no doubt. And it's really just expanding that one point further. It's really interesting looking at the metabolism that folks have for different compounds, right? Like I think I'm a slow metabolizer of, I forget the gene in the liver, but like a couple of blood thinners, right? So the only reason I know this, I've taken way too many genetic. I've sequenced my freaking genome like 3 times because I sign up for studies left and right. But that's got big implications, right? Like if the doctor doesn't know that, which they don't, that's not in your medical records, right? They're going to prescribe a standard dose, and your blood's going to get thinner than it needs to be, and like there's risk there. But that same concept applies to so many different compounds. So this personalized nutrition, personalized pharmacology,
Yep.
sounds like sports pharmacology is, yeah, it's super interesting, super interesting. So
Yeah, and so don't not no one knock on Division III sports. There's still high quality sports. There's still some players in there that are really good. They just weren't the tallest, the fastest, but I was a Division III athlete myself, so I totally get that. Um, how did you fall into, down the line after you went through some of these different tech companies? How did you fall into the Patriots? Did you know somebody there? Did you just get lucky? Like, was it just a job opening? Like, no one at the time was doing software engineering, and then they were kind of above the curve.
yeah, it's funny. It gets back to that weird intersection, right? Like the fortunate like path I took was, hey, I want to work at software, intersection of software and sports, right? So just because of the fact that I was probably the only computer science major in some 10-year stretch at Tufts that played in the football team, right?
Hmm.
And what happened was, I think the story goes here, right? The details are fuzzy. It's like 7 years ago. Bill Belichick was a Wesleyan football guy, right? A
Yep.
NESCAC football guy, right? He also played lacrosse. So he was interested in finding some folks with football domain experience that could come in here and write some code and build a software team. So someone in the scouting department, I think it was Brian Smith, called up my old football coach at Tufts, Jay Savetti, and said, "Hey, we're looking for a software engineer. Do you have anybody in the team?" So Jay said, "Yep, got a guy." Connect the dots. I go do a quick introductory kind of screen, and they say, "Hey, we wanted to bring you in to interview for a scouting analyst role." And I said, "Well, hey guys, I want to go build software. I'm not interested in doing the scouting thing." And they said, "Why don't you come in anyway and just check it out?" So of course, I grew up like just Sean, right? Like Patriots have always been. I grew up in Boston, right? So this is like, what the hell? I'm going inside it's like Willy Wonka in the chocolate factory, right? I'm walking into, let's say, I'm like, I'll take the interview just to like get my head in the door and see what the heck's going on in there, right? Because it's like, you can't get in there. So I
Well, you
go
see
do the
enough of his
interview.
interviews, you're just like, you don't know really what's going on in there because he's so vague and just kind of straight to the point. So you're like,
Yeah,
I gotta get in.
100%, right? And it's funny. I'm interviewing for like this software analyst job, and the whole time I'm sitting with scouts and I'm watching like football game tape. And like Monty Ossenfort in the college side is like asking me how the linebacker is like fitting against the fullback to set the edge on uh like third and long. You know what I mean? I'm like, he's doing an all right job. He's doing better than I would, right? So the so I kind of go through all these different football specific interviews because there were no software folks in house. And finally, I sat with Bill and Nick Casario, and they asked me if I wanted to come in and build software there. And at the time, I actually had a job from Google of all places. So you look at and everyone does this, right? A lot of folks chase the salary and chase the prestige of like a Google and a for me, I really always wanted to do things that are novel, right? So instead of taking the Google job and the salary and the compensation that it comes with it, I took a big risk because I saw the opportunity to go carve out a niche, right? In football, in sports, at the intersection of software, sports, and analytics. And that was kind of what made the decision, right? And the first first couple of years there were bumpy, right? A lot of long days building trust and keeping my mouth shut and just getting busy and getting work done.
Just
And
listening. They
that's
don't want to
right.
hear you, just listen.
That's right. Yeah, usually the wisest person in the room is the quietest, right? I was just like, I'm gonna shut up and absorb this, right? So learn a lot. Eventually built the team out there, about 4 or 5 software engineers building some cool stuff there. So that's the gist.
Yeah, money doesn't always buy us happiness at the end of the day. Obviously, money is good. And we need money to support ourselves, support our family. But when you get a rare opportunity like that, you never know if you're going to get the opportunity again in your career. So it's just like either I'm going to take it, and it's going to be a struggle these first couple of years, but there's probably going to be some kind of light at the end of the tunnel that's going to lead to bigger things for
That's right.
yourself, which it has at this point, which has been great for you on that side. So how did Notemeal start then? Like, was there a dietitian there? Like, was Ted Harper there when you got there? Did all of a sudden you had success now with the scouting side, and then Ted came in and he's like, "Hey, let's try to do something for this on the nutrition side." How did that all come about?
Yeah, totally. Right. It was kind of a function of a few things, right? Ted Harper was there for all 4 years, and man, like when you work for and a lot of folks listening will understand this, right? When you work for a pro sports team, or for a college sports team, right? You're working long hours, but you're not always working, right? You're there for 12, 14 hours a day, and you got a lot of what we call desk guarding, right? You just got to be there in case something comes up, right?
Mm.
And every time I had one of those gaps, like I just go hang out with Ted because I found him. He was just such an interesting dude. and he's just a great dude, right? So I mean, we'd play basketball and stuff together. So Ted's a great friend of mine. He's been a great mentor, and we had that bond way before the Notemeal stuff kind of ever happened or came to fruition. And a lot of the work that I was doing was really on the personnel side. So think scouting, recruiting, evaluating talent objectively. And in my opinion, we had got that to a point where it was really humming, and I was ready to go take on the next thing. So we started to poke around in the performance space and build some stuff in house. And in doing that, we got exposure to what folks had built out in the market, right? And you saw a lot of like I don't know how to put this blunt, like not bluntly, but you saw a lot of really bad software built and sold to practitioners, like a lot of purpose-built software that was really bad, right? And it just poor craftsmanship on the software side, on the product side, right? So you kind of dig in there, you're like, teams are investing a lot in these tools. The ideas are great, it's just an execution problem, right? So I was interested in Ted and his work, and to my point before about just the nutrition space in general. And that was kind of the idea. I said, hey, there's an opportunity here. There's so many inefficiencies. I've learned a lot here over the last 4 years about this space. And I think I can leverage some of the relationships, the network, and the deep domain experience I've got working in the NFL to go build a product that could make a lot of dietitians' lives a lot easier, right? So it was a combination of many things that kind of led to me deciding to give my leave and start a company, right? Which is a crazy, irrational. Every entrepreneur is totally
They're just like,
irrational.
that's a big jump. Like, can you afford to even do that? Like, do you have the finances to be able to just make that jump?
Yeah, at the time, I went a year and a half with no salary, and I was living at the time in South Boston. My now wife was my girlfriend. She at the time she had moved in with me, and was renting my small house in South Boston out to my cousin, to my best friend, to my brother. Alicia was there with me, so we had like it was like a slumlord. I had like 5 people in this like 1,000 square foot house in Southie to try to cover to try to put a dent in the mortgage while I was doing this irrational startup thing. So it was quite the experience.
I mean, you got to do what you got to do at that point. Like and I think the big thing there is like if your now wife was supportive and your family is supportive of you, and at least if you have those key members that are like entrusted to you that they know this is going to turn and be into something, I think that's the base and that's what's going to be the most important. Because if you didn't have that, you're just doing all by yourself and then didn't have anyone to support up beyond that. Like who knows if this venture would have even gotten to
That's
the height
right.
that it has now.
Yeah, that's right. Alicia, if you're listening, thanks for everything. Right? It's like we all owe our spouses and our friends and our family and our support groups so much, right? No one sees what happens when when the computer gets shut down and you got all these thoughts running through your head. And I mean, there are plenty of nights where you're just like, what am I doing here? And you're second guessing everything, and you fall and lean on those people to make sure you're able to keep going, keep moving forward, right? And I think
Or like,
the folks up here, yeah.
how am I gonna pay the bills tomorrow? Like, how am I gonna buy groceries? You're like, how am I just
Yeah,
gonna do everyday life activities that are
yeah, no
keep
doubt.
me going?
We always joke that we were driving this old Toyota, what the hell was it, a Corolla or something, right? And I didn't have a car, I had my bike, and Alicia would drive. She every time we'd go to a family party, because I was working so much, because I was just when you're starting the first couple of years, you can't you can't sacrifice, you can't leave any hour like unspent, right? So we'd go to like a family party that was like 45 minutes away. My parents are up north of Boston, and Alicia would always drive, and I'd sit in my laptop in the front seat and work, no matter what day it was. So Alicia would always joke that like, if this thing ever works, you're buying me a new car, because she was like my personal chauffeur everywhere we went. So it's the little things, right? It's the little things that allowed me to work really hard. So
Yeah, it's like the give or take. It's like obviously you sacrifice in the beginning, and then like maybe you got to sacrifice in the back end because she wants to do something. Like that's just at the end of the day what a relationship entails. And if you're able
that's
to
right.
do that and have that give or take back and forth, then hopefully that leads to a long and healthy relationship over
That's right.
time.
No
Versus,
doubt.
funny we talk about NFL or we talk about college. Like the sad thing that typically happens is one person in the relationship always ends up dominating that, and you move 7,000 times, you switch a million jobs, and the other partner really is kind of getting dragged and left behind. And, that leads to a lot of unfortunate situations. And I've
Yeah.
been to multiple conferences where how many people are divorced in the room or how many people have had X amount of marriages or X amount of people. And it's like you see like 60, 70% of the room like raise their hand and you're just, well, I
Yeah.
don't want that to be me. Like, is this space long term healthy or like do we need to people to help come in and actually like counsel our
Yeah.
practitioners to
No, and
help
that's
help
the
us get through it.
yeah, and that's the unfortunate reality, right? I mean, it just again, talking about microcosms, right? I think over half of marriages end in divorce, right? And it really it really takes a very concerted effort to foster and grow relationships with your wife, your spouse, your husband, right? It's yeah, it's no joke, man, right? You gotta be intentional. At least she's a physical therapist, so this is weird. She's gonna watch this and be like, "Why the hell are you talking about me?" But she's a physical therapist. She works in person, so I've got a little more flex on where I can work from here at Teamworks because we're kind of totally remote, all 300 plus employees. What we do, we hire a lot of folks that have been in the athletic seat, whether you were a DFO or a dietitian or a strength and conditioning coach. And I think what we've done here is we've been able to give folks a little bit of a work life, right? Where you can work where you want. You got the 8 hour a day, like the 40-hour week, which is pretty unheard of when you're working in sports, grinding it out. So again, a lot of folks that work on the software side that haven't worked in the team side don't understand that, right? But it is totally night and day. And again, you do it the team side for different reasons, right? What an incredible journey that was, and that is for everybody that participates in it, right? You can't replace changing lives and helping these athletes and coaching them up and educating them and making a huge impact and dent in their life, right? So it's all about give and take, right? It's about trade-offs.
Yeah, I think what you said there, like the flexibility with work now and being able to work virtually, being able to work mobilely, be able like you could be in Aruba and still do your work for your 8 hours and then go travel to some other country and still do your work for 8 hours. But at the end of the day, if you're getting your work done and the mission's accomplished and you're taking one step closer or farther to what the business wants to get to, and everyone's on the same page doing it, then that gives some flexibility to people's lives to do things that they may have not been able to do before because you're stapled down and having to be in one specific area and not being able to go anywhere until this 1 or 2 weeks off during the year where it's like, no, I can actually stop because I'm actually just taking time off.
That's right.
And my fiance's cousin works for a company where she's mobile as well. And she's able to do all these fun things throughout the year. She's like, I was never able to do that before. She goes, so it's definitely a different shift and a different mindset
No
in
doubt. By the
comparison
way,
to.
I didn't know you got engaged. Congrats, man. That's great.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. We're getting married in May,
Let's
so
go. Wow,
now
coming up, man.
now everybody knows.
Let's go. Let's go. You hear that, everyone? You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. I'm broken to Sean Harrington.
It's great, but the one thing I'll say about the trade-offs there, right? The remote versus the in-person work, it is really energizing getting in person, right? Like we just came out of a big kind of the teamwork summit last week, had about 70 folks in the space together in one room, and just the people you meet, the experiences you have, you can't beat that, right? I think what's really nice is these hybrid environments where you can take a day and work at home to save yourself the commute and the context switching, right? When you can. So the future of work is interesting. I think, unsolicited answer here, but I think that you'll continue to find a mix of both, right? You need both, right? Humans get lonely and they don't feel good when they're staring at their screen all day and they're not around other people. So
I 100%, especially coming out of COVID, like human interaction and being in groups and having conversations, just being around people, like night and day difference. Like
no
how
doubt.
you feel and how your mood is. Like you just need to be around people. It's just we naturally need to do that.
Yeah, no doubt.
So how is like hiring dietitians or having dietitians feedback been helpful in your growth of Notemeal? I seem to see a lot more dietitians now across supplement companies and just other companies in general. They're hiring dietitians to have that person, to have that face that understands, I guess, our field and our environment to then better be able to speak about the product or option that they're trying to then push out to other dietitians or people in the field. So how has that helped you guys having those people there?
Yeah, the number one word that comes to mind is probably accountability, right? I'm going to draw a weird thread that I've never drawn before. But if you think of like why, if you're looking to work with like a family planner or financial planner, like wealth management or anyone who's going to help you not screw up your retirement account, right? You look for folks that have like what is it, like a CFA or a CPA on the tax planning side, someone who's got a credential, because some of those credentials bar them from giving advice that is not in the best interests of their clients, right? For example, so companies that have a CFA, you might trust them more because of that, because that individual person is accountable, right? When nobody owns something, or when multiple people own something, any responsibility, then nobody really owns it, and there's no accountability, right? So when we bring, what we've found here is we've brought out, I think 6 dietitians on board here, right, in various roles across various product lines. On the Notemeal and nutrition side, they've held us accountable, right? They have prevented us from doing dumb things to make money, right? And like, you see it, building business, any business, is really hard. And the number one goal of any business is to generate value and to capture some of that value in the form of revenue, so you can grow your business and you can pay your people, right? You can invest more in the business and grow more, right? And this continues to cycle. Right, the shortcuts there, like for instance, take Notemeal. We very easily over the years could have picked a partner with a supplement company or with a food company who wanted to pay us to elevate their brand in the eyes of the dietitians, right? I don't know. I'm not going to pick on anyone specifically, because that could tick somebody off, right? But pick your favorite CPG brand or your favorite supplement brand, and like pick the most nefarious product they've got, right? Maybe some like performance enhancing supplement that they want to get in front of athletes. All right, people do this all the time, right? Supplement companies do this. They're sponsoring athletes. The NIL stuff is a whole nother can of worms, right? That's a really low-hanging fruit to go pluck to make a bunch of money, right? Anybody could do that. We would never do that, right? Because we've got dietitians on staff who would not feel comfortable standing behind their RD and their CSSD credentials, right, and saying that this is a good idea, Sean, right? And because of that, it's been kind of in our kind of ethos at Notemeal, and now at Teamworks, to do what's best for the sports nutrition community and to foster that. It's a tight community, as you know, Sean, right? So it's like, how do we keep that tight, and how do we kind of keep everything aligned in the right direction? So I think that's the first thing. I think some of the other things we've done, we've really championed that sports dietitian, right? I think, again, talking about opportunities, there have been countless opportunities to go take Notemeal and like roll it out to a high school, right? Because the high school wants to get it, even though they've got their strength coach who wants to administer the platform. I mean, this honest to God comes up every week, where we say no to business because there's no dietitian that can actually drive Notemeal and implement it. And as soon as we say yes to one of those, right, if one's wrong, they're all wrong, right? That becomes the floodgates, right? Our sales team goes out and they start selling to anyone who wants to buy Notemeal, and we start to be delivering, suboptimal messaging and education through a platform. And that's just something we're not doing. So those are 2 kind of concrete examples.
And I think, and I've been through multiple different places where the sales department and the dietitian, or let's say even just the practitioner, strength coach, mental conditioning, are on 2 different wavelengths, or these guys never meet.
Totally.
I'm just trying to make a sale to help the business grow and build money and build finances, get a rate of return. I'm over here to help the athlete. No one has a discussion. Athlete comes, whoever comes, hey, these practitioners do this, and this, and sales sold this, and this.
Yep.
Well, I heard sales told me I was going to get all these different products or options. And then here's a practitioner. I don't know what you're talking about.
Totally.
So when you can bring both together, and the dietitian can be like, we can't offer that, or there's not a dietitian there that can, like, the stuff that you're selling, we really can't do that with this software because we don't have the person in place to be able to do that. So it's like, unless you hired somebody, or we have something that provides you dietitians out there that can then look over these things, good luck.
That's right. Because, if you're not, as an organization, we talk a lot about like people, facilities, and tech from an investment perspective at all these sports organizations, right? And like, if you're not willing to make the investment in people, why are you buying the technology? Make the investment in your people, right? And let us empower them to do more with these technologies. It's kind of the high level approach that we take, right? And I think the fun part now is on the performance side is we're building more, right? Well, you'll hear from us soon here, but like, we're building more purpose-built solutions for other practitioners in these human performance departments, right? And now what's going to happen is these systems act like, I'm talking about real integrations, not like the amount of horse water like integrations that don't actually do anything, that just talking about sales, that just check boxes, right? We are building a platform that has interconnected pieces so that this practitioner gets to work with this practitioner across their departments, and they can see things, and we create transparency and objectiveness, right? Instead of subjective storytelling between like an athletic trainer and a sports dietitian, or a strength and conditioning coach and an athletic trainer, right? So it's going to be fun to see how things come together here. But I'm getting ahead of myself.
And I've been pushing that for a while. Like, we got to break down these silos, because all of us are going to intertwine and like overlap with each other at some point in time. And like, we need to support each other to be able to then provide the athlete the best 360 degrees of care. Like, it's not going to
Oh, yeah.
happen. You're just doing it in your office by yourself and not sharing any of this information. Like, you need to be having meetings, you need to be having conversations. Like, the athletes need to be seeing you as a unit doing stuff together, to know that across the board, the standard's going to be the same, the verbiage is going to be the same. If I come to the strength coach and someone's asking about nutrition, I would hope that strength coach is going to say, hey, I want you to go talk to Sean. I want you to go talk to our dietitian about this.
Yeah.
Hey, you're injured. I want you to go talk to the athletic trainer about this. Not taking it into their own hands and say, like, well, I'm going to control all of this. No, I've got all these different components within, my space. Let's utilize them in their expertise and what they can do. And then, all right, they're going to communicate back to me. And now what can I do? What do I have to change that may improve this process, so that ends up getting us to a better result? So then the coaches are happy, right? At the end of the day, if the coaches are happy, we're winning games, the athletes are staying healthy and available, keyword available, hopefully 85–90% of the time. And that can last over multiple years. Everyone's hopefully not going to keep their job.
Yeah.
And
No
it comes
doubt.
down to
Yeah.
data. Data allows us to be able to show those numbers for ourselves as practitioners, back to the athletes, and then high level to those, couple 2 or 3 visuals for the 5 minutes you get to the people that are above. So now you're working up and down the chain appropriately with that data and information, to be able to actually do something with it versus sitting there collecting it.
Totally. Couldn't agree anymore.
And a couple of other things I liked that you said, referring to the dietitians, is I think, you hiring 6 dietitians and more companies hiring dietitians just gives them either, 1, a seat at the table, 2, another opportunity to develop skills that can take them in different directions outside of athletics and sports. Because I think there's a lot of times where dietitians now are getting to year 7, 8, 9, 10, 60 to 90 hours a week. That's pretty tough for me. Or I've got a family and kids, and I want to be able to go to their ball games. Like, I want to be able to do stuff with them after 4 or 5 o'clock, not have to work to 9 and then go travel on Saturday and Sunday. So the fact that more of these opportunities are opening up for dietitians that are now later in their career, they have so many more paths that they can go down, and so many more options, and also these mobile/virtual options, that makes it a lot more flexible, which is reducing your stress, and then your family life's going to be a lot better. Then hopefully we're not getting divorced in 15, 20
We've come full circle, haven't we?
Exactly. So with Notemeal, so you guys were just a lone entity, and then you transitioned to joining with Teamworks. And I know Teamworks kind of is like this overarching company that has all these different companies within it. Can you kind of give us a breakdown or description? Like, what does that look like? What is Teamworks?
Yeah, it's a great question. So really, I'll try to hit this in one line, right? We're building the operating system for sports, and what that means, right, is we're really building these. You think of the athlete, right, in the center of everyone's universe, right? Around the athlete, we've got all these supporting departments, right? That might be athlete development, that might be human performance, it's branding and NIL, right? It's the coaching stuff, it's the recruiting, the scouting, right? All these departments and resources support the athlete through their life cycle, right? From recruiting to actually getting them on the team and developing them as humans, right? Then, increasing their performance by 1 to 2%. And then this begs the question, what happens after, right? What happens after the athlete? So it's the full life cycle of the athlete. And when we're talking about athletes, in the last 2 years, the Teamworks, we've expanded to kind of the service member too, right? So we were really targeting athletes and tactical service members in the military, and actually increasingly so the fire and the police space as well, which is really exciting for us. So
That's
and it's
that
big, and it's
blowing up, because there's fire. I mean, there's firefighters and there's police in the entire country. It's like, that's just
yeah.
a other
It's a
can of
big
worms.
different, yeah, it's a big different animal. We're learning how to go attack it and support them, and it's been really fun. And again, you think about that wheel, we call it, right? We're basically building these purpose-built software solutions for each of those departments to support the athlete in the middle. And those are all on one platform, Teamworks, right? The data's flowing between them. There's one profile across all those athletes. There's one login for every one of those platforms. That's kind of the support ecosystem and the practitioner experience. The athlete, right, is receiving all of that information through one app, right? So when we are thinking about all these apps that folks are juggling, all the sports tech companies in the space, we're squishing all these down into one app so athletes know where to go to find all things performance, all things scheduling, messaging, athlete development, academics, right? Branding, NIL, where are they getting paid for NIL, right? All these things go into one spot, and that is the vision, right? Every like 2 months, we get more right into that one app, and it's been really fun to kind of to see it and continue to drive it. And I think yeah, I think where this whole space is going, if you take a big step back for any of the folks that follow the markets or kind of economic trends, like we're kind of in this big bundling phase right now, right? And I don't mean bundling from like a packaging and pricing perspective. I'm talking more about the amount of sports tech companies and the funding that has flowed into the space from say 2009 up to about 2018, 2019. Huge increase, right? Tons of money poured in. The number of sports tech companies started, it just increased like something like 40%, something like crazy, like 30% compounded annual growth, right? Now we're seeing everything fall, right? And that looks scary, right? You see like much fewer software companies start, much fewer venture capital funds flowing into this space and every space, by the way, right? But the reason there, right, is that capital's gotten more expensive, right? It's more expensive to go borrow money, right? It's more expensive to go raise money. Just getting money's harder because of the interest rates rising, right? And because of that, you're seeing consolidation happen, right? No secret here. We've acquired like 7 or 8 companies in the last few years, right? We're bundling the technology up, right? And introducing efficiencies, right? If you have 3 companies in the space that all have different products, they've all got different sales teams and product teams. What we can do is we can squash those products into one company, right? Move people that are in sales into other functions to streamline everything through one sales team, through one product team, through one CS team. It gets more efficient, gets more approachable for folks to buy these solutions, and it's way simpler, right? So that's kind of our strategy here, right? Is we are really consolidating, yes, some companies, but consolidating many products onto one operating system, offering this entire operating system to all these elite athletic organizations, so they have everything they need in one spot. So that's kind of the. Whew, I need some slides, but that's the perfect fish, Sean.
I mean, I think that's what people want. I mean, athletes, coaches, people just get app fatigue, right? I can
That's right.
remember back several years ago, you just watching athletes just onboard and just like, oh, you got to add this app and this app and this app and this app, and it's like 5 to 8 apps later,
Yeah.
and again, we know how athletes work, especially at that age group they come in, 18 to 27 years old. They're probably not adding half the apps, and then when they
Yeah.
don't, now the coach is pissed off, like, why didn't you know about this schedule, or why didn't you know about this? Why didn't you know about that? And then now half the people aren't on the same page. People are missing things, and it just becomes this huge conundrum and problem. And then 2, 3 weeks later, now finally everyone's on it because they probably sat them all down, made them all edit at the same time, and then now everyone knows what's going on. Versus if you have one app, one button, and to be able to click into there, and then it's like, all right, here's your dashboard of options that you can essentially select from.
Right.
What are gonna be your top most important things that you're gonna need to look at every day? What are some stuff you should look at occasionally? And what are some like extra features that are gonna provide you some enhanced benefits? That definitely makes it a lot easier. And I kind of related to like chefs, right? Or like or with dietitians, athletes during a year get flavor fatigue. So if you're not
Yeah.
changing it up and you're not switching things up to provide a different look, a different appearance to the same thing that you're getting repetitively over time, athletes and coaches and people are going to lose interest. And especially nowadays, people's attention span is so short. If you're not doing something, and I'm not saying companies have to do something just to do something, but if you're not evolving and changing what you're doing from a business or a company standpoint, people are always going to be looking for what's next. And if you're not providing what's next, or you're not providing what the new thing that's out there is, to a certain extent, as long as it's still within your values, then it's probably going to be challenging to be able to stay on top of that curve.
Yeah, no, without a doubt, right? And it's, like we've both been athletes and we've worked in the space for a while, and it's, at the end of a long day, or the beginning of what's going to be a long day, the last thing you want to do is like to ask yourself where you're going to find your schedule, or to not know where to go to find what time practice is at, or where your workout is, because some strength coach emailed it to you 6 weeks ago during the off season. You're like, I don't know what to lift to say. I'm gonna go ask my buddy and figure it out, right? So,
Yep.
it's like you need to make it really accessible, and then once it's accessible, you can do some real fun stuff, right? Create leaderboards, or allow folks to compete with each other, or talking about supplements. Where do supplements belong in this mobile app, right? These are just mentioning a few because they're top of mind from conversations I'm having later today, right? So it's a really fun problem to go tackle. It's a hard one, right? We're talking about taking a lot of information across otherwise disparate siloed spaces and really putting it in one spot. But the amount of progress we made just in the last 6 months has been really encouraging, and I can't wait for 6 more months, because we've got some fun stuff coming.
And I think it's helpful too, is then you can create just one overall profile. So it's like, now if you want to communicate individually with the athlete, or you want to look at the overall stats and then provide that to the coaching staff, like you're just pulling that or downloading that from one spot,
That's
or
right. I mean,
displaying it from
we
one
had
spot, which makes it easier.
yeah, we had like 30 applications we were using with the Patriots, right? And you had to go to, so you had 30 different athlete profiles, and to do any report across those different solutions, like it took our software engineers over half their time, right, each year to stitch together all those profiles and those data points, just to have it be in the same profile, right? It's like,
Now it's just like,
yeah, that's it, boom,
here it is.
that's it, that's right, that's
Which
right,
is night and day difference.
yeah, no doubt.
I guess a couple final questions I have is, how do you foresee, the future of Notemeal and Teamworks? I mean, I get, again, things that you can talk about, how do you see it transitioning or changing over the next, I guess, 6 months to a year? And obviously with AI popping up now as a huge player in the game, anything with AI integration that's occurring with Notemeal or Teamworks in general that may benefit athletes and practitioners.
Yeah, like, I think I'll take the first question first, and I'll get to the AI piece. It's always a fun one. The future, specifically at Teamworks, and the future of Notemeal, right? I think, taking a big step back, we're still in every industry matures from a digitalization perspective, like at different periods of time. Like, you could argue that we're 10 years behind healthcare, right? In the sports tech space, and healthcare still has all sorts of inefficiencies introduced by the bureaucratic legislation that has held up a lot of the innovation there, right? And like, we're working through it, and we'll figure it out. Sports tech is just behind, right? And we're still in this era of, think about just digitalizing any kind of process, right? Taking nutrition in a silo, getting folks off of Excel and off of pen and paper onto a purpose-built tool, right? That's one system, right? The next phase is to do the same thing for strength conditioning, do the same thing for athletic trainers and sportsmen, the same thing for coaching and for scouting, right? Now you have many systems, right? And those systems need to get connected with, again, like through things like one profile across all of those tools, right? We're like right there right now. We're just starting to connect all these departments and all these systems across each organization. And like, this is, again, I apologies if I sound biased or overly objective here, but like, we're the only company doing that right now. Like, we're the only ones right now in this that's only focused on this space that are actually stitching these products together. In part because we have the luxury of just caring about that. We don't have the need to go serve high schools or personal trainers or gyms or nutritionists, right? Our
Well, I think
favorite
you guys set, I don't want to say set the standard, but you guys set the thought process of like, this is what we want to do. Versus, I think some companies are just chasing certain stuff, and
everything.
they
It's
want to
whatever.
they want to collect all these different environments and populations and all these different subgroups, because that's going to help their company grow. Versus, you guys are like, this is what we're going to focus on. Let's get this right. Let's get all the components, all these practitioners that can help that core, which is the athlete. And if we can do that, then maybe long term we can look into these different entities. But if we can't even do this part yet, then why are we just spread? Because eventually that's probably just going to spread your company too thin, spread your workers too thin, and then you're just in 1,000 different directions, and there's no like goal that we're trying to hit. Like
That's right. That's right. It's the like the best resource you can, or the best gift you can give anyone, whether it's a teammate, whether it's your team, your colleagues, it's or yourself. It's focus, right? Especially in the entrepreneurship space, right? Zach talks a ton about this, and when you talk about strategy, startup strategy, right? Typically, how you do this is you go take on a beachhead market, you win that, win it, you win the whole thing, right? You solve all the problems, and then you expand, right? If you look back to, like, I don't want to get cliche here, like you look at World War II, right? Right. Nazis fight the front, like they're fighting on three fronts at once, the two fronts at once, right? And we're focused on one front, like we beat them, right? So again, I know that's like a totally cliche analogy.
Out of left field, but
I hate when people talk like war and business. I'm like, Jesus, like, yeah, like I read
just think about what I'm saying, big picture. Like,
yeah,
we
big
did
picture. That's
front,
right.
They did three. We still won with one front.
That's right. So it's like we're so hyper focused on elite athletics, and we've now just 2 years ago started to focus on the military space, right? The SOCOM and the DoD, right? And back to where we're at with these systems, right? We were just starting to connect these systems. Okay. Once those systems are all connected across all of our organizations, then you do really powerful things, right? This is what you'll start to hear over the next few years. All these like these very specific integrations that add a ton of value, that save 10 hours here, that save 50 hours there, that save 100 hours there. And then you have a connected system, right? And by the way, to answer your second question, once you have the connected system, then you can actually start to do AI, right? When you have all the data sets, right, associated with one profile across all these different departments, then you have this multi-dimensional data set, and you can start to do really clever AI, right? You can start to do predictive things, right? I think a lot of people talk about their companies or themselves, and I'm not knocking anyone specifically here, right? But like talking about doing predictive modeling and machine learning and stuff. And like, guys, believe me, like we tried as much as we could possibly do on the Patriots side. You can't do that much. Like you don't have that much data outside of the player tracking data, right? Which is like you're collecting these data points like 10 times a second on where athletes are in the field. That's a pretty in-depth data set. But even for football, it's really hard to do predictive modeling because you have so many dependencies about where all the guys are in the field relative to each other. So, I think where we're seeing AI get used today is very subtle things. Like in Notemeal, I'll give you a couple of concrete examples. If we don't have an image for a piece of broccoli, we can generate an image for a piece of broccoli, and that translates to a better user experience for the athlete who doesn't want to be staring at blank white space. They want to see broccoli, right? If we're generating thumbnails for like a workout or like a specific exercise on the performance, the Smartabase side, right? We can generate like an image of a workout or clean up an image so it looks a little bit better. That's kind of two examples. I think doing things like generating content, right? Or creating content is 95% the way there, and allowing dietitians to finish the last 5% if it's a message or if it's a specific meal plan. We do that now in Notemeal, right? We can generate meal suggestions with our internal AI, right? And if 90% of those meal options are great, cool, right? If the dietitian has to jump in there and tweak a couple, great. But guess what? We just saved them 90% of their time, right? From 3 hours, it takes them a couple minutes to do this now. And they still get to put their stamp of approval on it. It's not like, let's just throw a dart at the wall and see what AI spits back. So you see it in subtle pockets. And I think as the industry matures, you're going to start to see more of the LLM stuff start to bleed in and more of the prescriptive content generated by the AI. It's just we're still in the data collection and integration phase, in my opinion, in our industry. And I think it's going to pick up rapidly here. But folks that jump into the space for the first time and they're like, we're going to do an AI company in sports tech. It's just like
I've been they're not going to have any foundation. They're really
yeah,
I mean, like, a bunch of AI, and then all of a sudden,
yeah,
what do we do?
It's all about, right? The AI stuff is totally commoditized, right? It's like running water. Everyone has it now. It's easy. It's really, honest to God, it is, man. You could spin these things up in a day, right? The value is in the data that you've collected as an organization, or is the data you've collected across all the organizations that the company is servicing, right? So that's where we're going to start to see folks capitalize on it, and it'll be exciting. It'll definitely be exciting. It's getting there.
Yeah, I've finally got the opportunity to like fully use Notemeal. I know I've used Notemeal on a couple opportunities before in the past on a smaller spectrum, but now I've been able to use the entire thing. And yeah, back in the day when you had to like spend like hours making one plan, versus now it takes me like 5 minutes, or I can make two plans that meld into one like all right, here's your training day fueling and here's your off day, off day fueling, or I can make 3 plans that all go into one app to do whatever the athlete or, in this case, in the tactical realm, what they want. It just makes it so much easier. And there's so many different options with, scanning the QR codes, of the products, sending a picture, having the text message option, tracking it, which probably came a lot from dietitians, just a lot of feedback. Like, because again, I think it's good that you have those people on the staff, because people that are in the trenches that see this every single day, and especially for anyone who's a business listen to this, like if you hire somebody that's in the trenches and know what's going on, know how to talk to the athletes, know how to talk to the coaches, the other practitioners in your group, like they're going to be able to bring that value to your company because they know it, they've seen it, and they've done it. Versus if you're in that business space and you think you're going to put out this great product, but you've never been in athletics, you've never been grinding for 90 hours a week in an athletic schedule, and then you're trying to guess and assume what that person needs, you're never going to know what they need. So why not just bring them on the front end, ask the questions you need to, go to these facilities, see what the environment actually looks like, and actually get into it with them. And you'll probably be so much farther ahead initially starting your company and starting your business versus like waiting years down the line and then now you're going to bring.
It's so true, man. Like when you go build these products, it's God, even some of the stuff that we go to market with and we get loud about and features we demo like food logging, right? I don't want to knock food logging. When we first started this thing, me outside looking in, I was like, hey, we're gonna get every athlete to log every meal, and we're gonna do machine learning, and we're gonna predict what they're gonna eat, and we're gonna have this massive like research quality data set to do like data mining on, right? Or machine learning on. And you get in there and like, you know what food logs are useful for now? I'll tell you what, it's like if you can get someone to log their food for 3 to 5 days in Notemeal, that is an absolute freaking gem of a data point, right? Because you can sit with them, you can break down their entire day, you can coach them up on, hey, we need to get more magnesium, right? We need to get more vitamin D because you're a white male living in Boston, like do a little better, right? So it gives you these touch points, these education points. But like we never like now we don't expect folks to get on their log for weeks at a time. Sometimes that's the case, and sometimes that helps folks, right? But it's just funny the reality of these features when you've been boots in the ground in the trenches, you understand the pain points, right? You understand how hard it might be to do nutrient analysis with some other third-party tool, or to do a 24-hour recall on paper, right? Or to upload body composition data, or to, you name all these little niche features that we've been lucky to be aware of because of the dietitians on staff and because we just talk to dietitians all day. So it's definitely all about the community. And I got to ask you, Sean, while you got me on here, while I got you on here, what's your favorite? I'll take this back to the team. Favorite feature in Notemeal, and where you think we've got the most opportunity to improve? Uh-oh, I lost him. All right, well, we were just about to get into it with Sean. I had some questions for him, but his computer unfortunately just got fried. He just texted me. So I'm going to read his text message right now, and I'm going to do his sign off. Thank you guys all for tuning in. It's been a pleasure to be on with Sean. If you got any questions, hit Sean up. He's doing a great job with the Roots podcast, and thank you all for tuning in.